Hello, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar. The Pituitary Network Association is a nonprofit organization that operates with support from our members and donors. We offer this webinar series to help educate patients, their families, and their healthcare providers. During today's webinar, please feel free to type in your questions at any time. Please note that all questions will be saved until the end of the webinar. We have allotted time to answer as many questions as possible. Any questions that are not answered will be reserved and answered by email. Today we are joined by Froggy, acromegaly patient, radio co-host of Elvis Duran in the morning show, and his wife Lisa Langley. They have graciously agreed to share their journey with acromegaly with us. Froggy will discuss his journey with acromegaly and how he has worked to overcome the daily struggles of managing a lifelong condition. Lisa will help shed light on living with acromegaly from a loved one's perspective. We are now going to turn this over to Froggy and Lisa. There will be a slight delay as we change presenters. And you should see on your end, there it goes, I can see. All right, it's all yours.
Thank you, everybody. My name is Froggy from Elvis Duran in the Morning Show. I was officially diagnosed in 2010, but my doctors are pretty sure I was living with the disease for at least 10 years before then. I had noticed changes in my body, but they were so gradual that I just chalked them up to either getting older or gaining weight. My jaw had grown so much that the top and bottom were no longer aligned. Speaking became more difficult. My voice had changed, which made being on the radio difficult as well. I had to adapt the way that I spoke, and by the end of almost every single show, my jaw would be sore. I hated the way I looked and became very self-conscious of my appearance. Didn't like taking pictures or any of that stuff. I had to resize my wedding ring a total of 4 times, and my shoe size went from a size 10 to I had a pair of shoes that were size 14s. So I literally felt like I was growing out of my own body. I remember feeling tired, getting bad headaches, sweating profusely all the time. I mean, there'd be times I'd sweat so much that I'd wake up in the middle of the night and my clothes, the pillow, the sheets would all be soaked. I felt like I would have to take a nap almost every day. Granted, I do wake up early in the morning, but on days, even when I didn't, I would just be so exhausted. Severe mood swings due to hormonal imbalance going on. I remember that one minute I'd be perfectly fine, and then something would irritate me, and I'd be in a really bad mood for something that didn't even really matter. And it took a toll on my relationship with both my wife and the rest of my family. While I worked hard to control the bad moods, it was hard because I didn't exactly know what was causing them. It was weird. It was a tough period for me, my entire family, everybody, just not knowing what was going on. Looking back on the experiences of photos now, when I look at pictures as we were getting ready to start this webinar, I saw a picture that I think to myself now, how did I not know what was going on? It seems so obvious now, but I didn't realize what was wrong. Plus, I wasn't even aware that there was a disease that would even cause these kind of changes. So there was no ways that I could have marked it up to acromegaly because I never even heard the word, didn't even know what it was. In 2009, I did some initial research, and I remember seeing the words acromegaly and brain surgery next to each other on a website. And I thought to myself, well, that's not happening. So I shut the computer down and just moved on because the word brain surgery was scary, so I just decided I didn't want to do it. Then one day I was at a golf course, and my mother called me, and she said, I need to ask you a question. And she asked me if I had ever heard of the term acromegaly and told me she was watching Jeopardy, the TV game show the night before, and saw a clue to which the answer was acromegaly. And at that point, when I heard her say that word, I knew that I couldn't ignore it any longer. It was something we had never talked about, but then yet something she had seen and noticed and read about, and I had as well. I went online. I went on the website acromegalyinfo.com, and there's a list of symptoms there if you think you have it. And I want to say there were like 8 or 10 symptoms, and I had 7 to 9 of them. I had all but one. So I felt I needed to discuss all of my suspicions with my primary care physician. And so I made an appointment actually a week later, 7 days later, I made a first appointment. But I did a lot of reading in that week in between setting up the appointment and then doing actually seeing the doctor, I had gotten really educated on what acromegaly was and what exactly was needed and what the symptoms were. When I walked in to my primary care physician, I asked her if she had heard of acromegaly, and she said yes, and she said, but you don't have it. And so I said, well, how do you know? And she said, well, I've never seen anybody with it, and I've been practicing for 20 years. And I said, well, with all due respect, it doesn't mean I don't have it. So I pushed forward for a pituitary MRI because I knew that that was what was needed due to my research online. They found a tumor growing on my pituitary gland. So I was referred to an endocrinologist, which before this process, I didn't even know what an endocrinologist was. After going through some more testing, the endocrinologist confirmed that I did have acromegaly and that I needed to have pituitary surgery to have the tumor removed. Shortly after diagnosis, about a month, I had pituitary surgery to remove the tumor. The surgeon was not able to remove the tumor and informed me and my family that I would require medical treatment for the rest of my life and to monitor my hormone levels to keep everything normal. A week after pituitary surgery, 7 days to the day, I had to undergo emergency surgery on my colon to have a portion removed. The excess growth hormone had caused a massive buildup of polyps, and so I was having trouble there as well. Once I got through the initial surgeries, my endocrinologist and I focused on finding the right management plan. It did take some adjustments. I tried different medical therapies and found one that finally worked for me, and I'm still doing the same today. About a year after being diagnosed, I decided to have surgery to repair my jaw because it had become so enlarged that, like I said before, I had difficulty eating and speaking. This was probably the most difficult surgery of any of the three, just because it was the longest recovery and the most difficult without being able to eat and, I mean, literally at times learning how to speak again and how to eat again. So many, different things. Waiting each time makes you anxious, between the initial brain surgery and the jaw surgery. There was a year in between that. So you spend a year being anxious of wondering, when the next one's going to come. You just want to kind of get it over with. Many times I felt like I was going to just, so much stress and pressure. But at the same time, with Lisa and my family and friends around me, it was able to help me get through it and maintain myself. And I knew that at the end of the tunnel there was a light, and that I was finally going to feel better. I was doing the right thing. As I talk to you today, I have my disease under control. I look back and realize now how draining it all was. As I sit here and talk to you, it even is a little shocking to me sometimes, everything that's happened. I was consumed by all the changes that were taking place for sure, but even after being diagnosed, I thought about the disease almost every single day. There wasn't really a day that I would wake up that I didn't think about having it. It's not easy remembering to take medication or stay on top of doctor's appointments, but I know if I don't do them, I can just end up back where I was again back in 2010. I'm diligent about taking medication as directed and having hormone levels checked every 6 months because that's what the endocrinologist has told me to do. I've learned that if something isn't right, like if I notice a change in symptoms or if my IGF-1 or my growth hormone levels are out of range, I have to immediately contact a doctor and see if changes need to be made to my treatment plan. I'm the first to admit that just like anything else, there's times in the past when I get a little lax about some of the management plan, but I work quickly to get back on track because I don't want to be where I was again. Also, having my wife Lisa there to help with the reminder. She has no trouble reminding me when I'm doing something wrong, trust me. Makes a huge difference. From getting diagnosed to managing the disease on a daily basis, living with acromegaly has for sure been an emotional roller coaster. I'd say I've gone from feeling relieved about finding a diagnosis because that was my initial. I remember being scared when I didn't know what was going on, but the day I was diagnosed, actually, we stood outside the endocrinologist's office. Lisa was crying, and I went to go play golf because I felt relief. I'm like, at least I knew what was going on. I was scared of having pituitary surgery for sure, but I felt like there was at least a plan. Now I knew what was causing all of these issues that I was having. I would say probably the best thing that's happened through all this is Lisa and I's relationship has been extremely strengthened because she's been there through everything. She went to every single doctor's appointment with me. I didn't go to one by myself ever. I was never alone. And she's there to make sure that I take my medication now and make sure that I stay on top of what I'm supposed to be doing. There were times I did get very depressed, for sure. I absolutely hated the way I looked. I didn't like taking pictures. And being in the entertainment industry, we take a lot of pictures. I never liked taking pictures. I didn't like pictures around the house of myself. It was very depressing. So I did see a therapist because I didn't really understand how to deal with it. And no matter how much Lisa would try and kind of make things feel better, it was almost like, well, you don't really understand because you're not in my shoes. So I did see a therapist that made me feel better about what was going on. My coworkers, between Elvis and Danielle and Bethany and everybody on the show, they've been a great support system for me as well. Everybody was extremely supportive during diagnosis and initial treatment. None of them had even heard of acromegaly before. Yet they all wanted to learn more and help in any way that they could. I can't count the number of times that Elvis would take time to talk to me, and then afterwards I found out even Lisa during our treatments. Going through this together really strengthened all of us together as a family. Talking to other acromegaly patients and advocacy groups like Pituitary Network has been motivating. I remember immediately after diagnosis reaching out to other people who were living with the disease, and people that I didn't even know, people that were in acromegaly community and stuff like that. It was nice to talk to somebody who had the disease, who would understand that it was nice to have somebody tell me, and the same feelings that I had inside were coming out of their mouth. That was extremely comforting. Since being diagnosed, I've seen compassionate people that I did not have the best relationship with before, yet they were extremely compassionate and understanding of what was going on. That too was extremely remarkable. I can say that I did feel at the time like acromegaly had ruined my life because of the way I looked. I really was very self-conscious. But now that I've taken control of it, I don't feel defined by it. It's not who I am. It's just something that I have, and being able to be here and do this makes it better. By self-advocating throughout the entire process and not taking no for an answer the day that I went to the primary care and she said, you don't have it, I've been able to get my health back under control. I've returned to living a somewhat normal life and doing the things I enjoy. I play golf on a regular basis. I play basketball with my son, play outside. I'm able to speak on the radio. My speaking is better again. All the hard work and challenges I face are worth how good I feel today. I'll be 40. I've said this before. I'll be 40 later this month. And I feel better as I'm turning 40 than I did turning 30. And that's because when I was turning 30, I didn't know what the hell was wrong with me. I just didn't feel right. It's not to say the struggles that I face, the physical changes, the health issues, the impact on relationships haven't stayed with me, because they have. But now I use them in a positive way to help me stay on track with a management plan to know that I don't want to go back there again. It's unbelievable to think that a tiny tumor can turn your entire life upside down, but it can. The good news, though, is you can do something about it. You do your research. You're your own best advocate. Nobody knows your body better than you do. Nobody knows what you feel. Nobody knows how you're supposed to feel better than you do. So you can't take no for an answer. If a doctor tells you no, but you really think something's wrong, you just got to push down the path and find out what's going on. So take it from somebody who's walked the walk. You don't have to be defined by acromegaly. You can take control of it. It doesn't have to define who you are. So I'm happy now to turn this over to somebody who has been just the greatest person through this whole deal, somebody I don't know what my life would be without. My wife, Lisa, and she'll share her perspective on what it's like supporting somebody who's extremely stubborn, yet she still sticks around today and has helped me get through this.
Hi, everyone. It's Lisa. I'm happy to be speaking with you today. This journey has been a true roller coaster, and I hope that my experiences will help you and your loved ones along this journey as well. Over the years, I have noticed my husband's appearance was changing, and for the most part, I thought everything was normal. The changes were slow, but odd things were happening, like him growing out of his shoes and wedding ring. His jaw and forehead had also become larger, which was the first indicator to me that something had been wrong. When I first met Scott, he had braces. The years later, I noticed his bottom teeth were crooked. It was like he had never had braces before. It was very odd. that was my biggest sign, because I couldn't understand having braces and having such a drastic change. He started having night sweats also. I would have to change his sheets every few days because they would be soaking wet. These changes were happening very slowly, so they weren't as apparent to us. But when we would run into people that we hadn't seen in years, they would notice a significant difference in his appearance and brought it to our attention to, just asking. We didn't have answers. Emotionally, my husband was extremely moody and would fly off the handle the smallest thing, which I now know is hormone related. But living with someone who was temperamental, it was extremely difficult and took a huge toll on a relationship at the time. Scott would get angry about things that didn't even matter, and then he'd be fine a few minutes later. It didn't make sense. Dealing with him was like walking on eggshells. I didn't know what mood was coming next. I tried really hard to deal with his mood swings, and then I came to a breaking point where we hit a low point in our marriage, because it was just too stressful, and none of us understood what was going on. It was a huge relief when he was finally diagnosed, because we finally had some answers. When the endocrinologist confirmed he had acromegaly, I was scared, confused, and went into instant panic mode. But Scott was quite the opposite. He was actually relieved. He had a diagnosis and knew where he needed to go from there. From that moment on, I saw him go to try and find an answer. He went to a therapist. He got books. He did a lot of research, things that I couldn't even believe that he did. He took this on full force. But for me, on the other hand, I was a little more emotional. I was upset because I didn't understand. But the love I have for my husband, I found the strength and support I never thought I would have. It was so hard to watch him stay strong when everyone around him was breaking down over this diagnosis. I felt like I was just waiting for him to the best of my ability. I read, I researched, and I listened to Scott talk about the disease and the different procedures he would have to go through. I went to doctor's appointments with him, and I made sure to pay attention to all the details. I went to every doctor appointment, actually. Even if he didn't show it, I knew it was overwhelming him. And I so tried to comfort him and remind him that we would still get through this together. We had a great support system, and we still do. My husband may be the one living with acromegaly, but as his wife, we face and manage the disease together. Doing small things like looking at his hands and his forehead for any swelling, checking on his general mood, has become habits of mine and the rest of our family. I make sure he stays on top of his medication, schedule his appointments, and blood tests. We monitor his hormone levels to ensure that he stays on track with that as well, because that's very important. Noticing any irregularities is important, so we can share this information with his doctor. As a loved one supporting someone living with acromegaly, it is so important that you are there for them every step along the way. Whether you understand it or not, you need to read, you need to do some research, and you need to be there for them. Whether it's big stuff like surgery or small day-to-day stuff, everything makes a difference when you're facing this lifelong disease. Everything makes a difference. From the very beginning, this journey has been scary and confusing, not only for my husband, but also for me and our family. Since the moment Scott was diagnosed, our families, Elvis Duran and his team, and our friends showed immense support, giving us the hope that we needed. Elvis and I talked for hours at a time about what we needed to do for Scott and how we could help him. And his support has been wonderful for me at the point when I didn't understand and needed answers as well. My oldest daughter really stepped up to help out during this diagnosis and initial treatment as well. We needed extra help around the house taking care of our younger son while we went through the process of figuring out what the next step was. Excuse me. I realized that you can deal with this on your own, but you also need a shoulder to lean on. You can't do that you can't do it alone. You just need help. You need support. Things are good now. We lead a very normal life, and we're going to continue doing that by ensuring his disease remains under control. I've learned that more than half the battle is to realize that you can live with this, and that it is possible to have somewhat of a normal life. My son and I try to remind that every day and help Scott with his disease. The one thing I would have to emphasize for anyone living with acromegaly would be to always stay 100% honest with what's going on with your body and your loved ones. If something is wrong, you need to tell someone. because it's so important to make sure your hormone levels don't become uncontrolled, and we can't help you if we don't know. I'm so proud of my husband's strength through this process and for being an advocate and resource for other acromegaly patients. I can't say enough what an inspiration he's been, and I'll stand by him forever. Anything. I will always help him, and I hope you all do the same.
That was great. Thank you both. Very informative. Getting the family perspective is also very helpful. We do have a few questions. The first one I have was actually sent to me by email. And this person, I've 4 years post-surgery to remove a 1 centimeter tumor that was at least 10 years misdiagnosed. I also have Lyme disease, which also went misdiagnosed as the two issues emerged about the same time. Monsanto statin, injections monthly. My question is about severe chronic fatigue. I deal with debilitating fatigue and brain fog memory issues on a daily basis, and I'm wondering if this is common with our disease, and if so, are there any good treatments for this? I'm open to clinical trials, new medications, and alternative treatments. Some of these questions are pretty medical based, but from your perspective, did you, Froggy, have any chronic fatigue? Did you have those issues prior? And is there anything that you've been able to do that maybe helps with that?
I didn't really, I experienced chronic fatigue prior to the surgery. Once I had my procedure and got my hormone levels under control, my chronic fatigue really improved quite a bit. But as far as anything else that you are experiencing, I would definitely let your concerns be known to a doctor.
Right.
And see if you need to either change your medical therapy or whatever it is. But that's definitely, that's an answer that would be better answered by a doctor.
Yes, I'm thinking most of these questions are medical in nature, but we'll go through them.
Okay.
Major difference in medications for acromegaly, I don't know that you can necessarily answer that. I know
Yeah,
it's just kind of a trial and error finding what works for you.
yeah, I've been on a couple different ones, and whatever I just do whatever the endocrinologist tells me, look at the numbers, and then we go from there.
All right. Gamma knife. Why does it take so long for gamma knife to work? I don't know. Have you experienced gamma knife?
No, I didn't have that.
Okay. Why did your disease take a long time to diagnose?
I think it's because, like I said, is that you write off changes in your body to aging and or just over time, and weight gain. And when I look back now, I do say to myself, how the hell did you not know what was wrong with you? I mean, I look at pictures, there's pictures that you saw on the slides that I don't look anything like that now. And I wrote it off to just aging and weight gain because it was so long. And the people that you see every day, the changes are so gradual. You got to remember, it was a 10-year process, so it doesn't change overnight. Yeah, I did notice something was going on, but I probably noticed about year 9. So that's when I first looked at it, and I was pretty sure then what was going on, but everything is so gradual, it almost takes somebody that you don't see on a regular basis. I mean, even if you see your doctor every 6 months, that's still probably not enough time. You have to see somebody that you haven't seen in a year or so, and there's a drastic change. And then how does somebody tell you look weird? I mean, that's another issue, is that's why it takes so long, and that's why we're doing this, is trying to get doctors to realize that if somebody comes to you and says, hey, my hands are swelling, my feet are larger, my forehead's growing, and my jaw's out of alignment, wait a second, all those things together on one person, we need to at least test for acromegaly.
That's an excellent point, especially as you mentioned earlier, your doctor said, oh, no, you don't have that, without doing the testing to say you don't have that. Just assume that you don't.
She was adamant. She even said to me, I said, well, I don't look like this, and I took a picture with me, and she said, well, that was 10 years ago. You're not supposed to look that way. And I said, right, but there were a lot of other changes going on. I was so sure I had it. I was just no doubt.
And persistence, also very important.
Yeah, you're your own best advocate, and nobody knows your body better than you do. Don't let somebody else tell you that you're not feeling something that you know you are feeling.
Right. Another question. Have you noticed if your diet affects acromegaly?
I would say no. I haven't really noticed anything as far as I'm concerned. That's probably too a doctor question. I'm sure there could be something that affects it. As far as me personally, no. I noticed weight loss, but the weight loss was because I literally became a smaller person. I mean, I was growing out of my own skin, so there's less of me now than there was then.
Hmm.
Because of the growth hormone. So I've lost weight because of that, but I didn't change my diet. Nothing changed that I was eating.
Do you have any recommendations for patients who may not have the strong family and community support that you have?
Hey, your friends, anybody that's a real friend is going to want to help you through this. If they don't, then they're not a real friend. Number one. Number two, I met somebody online who had acromegaly and through acromegaly community, and it was like I said, it was as great as my wife is, and I wouldn't trade her for anybody in the world. It was such a relief for somebody else on the other end of the telephone to say the things that I was feeling. And so that was just a huge relief that, you know what, I'm not the only one on this island. And that's why there are so many support groups that will help you get through whatever it is that you're doing. Giant question and answer forms like this, P&A. There's so many different support groups online that if you think that there's something wrong, absolutely reach out. There are people, that will help you and will help you get through it and say, hey, you're not the only one that feels this way.
Great. Somebody asked about dental problems, and you had mentioned dental problems. Were they covered by your insurance as a medical issue?
Obviously that is going to be from insurance company to insurance company.
Hmm.
I had a portion of mine covered, not all of them, but it was because of my diagnosis of acromegaly. So, that goes from insurance company to insurance company. That's not something that I can answer as a blanket statement.
Right. Okay. Um, when or did you begin to experience the anger and the rage? How long before your diagnosis, I think, is the question.
I would say probably, it was pretty early on. I would say that I remember my moods being just, getting mad about just stuff that just did not matter. Probably as early as like 2001, 2002. And I was diagnosed in 10. So, it's very early on. It kind of slowly onsets, and it's little things that really make you mad, and you realize it's one of those things where you get mad. I remember the therapist told me, she said, the next time you want to get mad about something, just wait and ask yourself, in 5 minutes, is it going to matter? In 10 minutes, is it going to matter? In an hour, is it going to matter? And so that's kind of how I try to deal with it.
Hmm.
But before that, I would get mad about stuff that in 5 minutes would not matter. You could like spill a glass of water on the table that didn't even get on anything, and I would wig out. And it was just like, it didn't matter.
Okay. Did you ever have a brain injury?
No, no. The biggest relief to me was when I had brain surgery. They found one to operate on. That was the biggest relief. No, no brain surgery. That's what my dad said to me. He's like, "How can you have brain surgery when you don't have a brain?"
Finding the humor in things is very
I know,
important.
right? Exactly.
Let's see. My experience is very much like yours since I had a very large adenoma. My doctor responded like yours. Most people seem to feel that you're responding to stress in your life. Is it difficult to get the support you speak of because I have never met anyone in person who has the disease? I think we've kind of covered that already. But any other comments on that?
I would just say, support groups online, whether it's P&A, Acromegaly community. There are, people that have it. Stuff exactly like this, joining into this webinar and hearing that there are other people that have it. It's not just, it is in your head, but it's not in your head. And that's the thing, is that you gotta stick with what you think is wrong. If something's not right, go to a doctor. If that doctor doesn't, I know it sounds crazy. If the doctor doesn't tell you what you want to hear, and you really believe something's wrong with you, you should get a second opinion. Don't just let somebody tell you no and just keep going.
Okay. Another one here. This one's kind of long, but I'll get through as much of it I can. Um, I was diagnosed with acromegaly in '96. Since then, I've had 128 surgeries or procedures to deal with the disease. The doctors do not know how to deal with the long-term implications from this disease. I've been thrown out of clinics in Oregon when they cannot figure out how to treat me. We have no support groups, and that is not okay. I now have to give myself weekly infusions to keep from passing out from dehydration, I think. No one knows how to deal with all of this. I'm in PT weekly, see a mental health therapist, work full-time, and run my own business. Be sure that everyone knows this is a long-term disease, and this case study is barely touching the issue. I'm not sure what case study she's referring to, um, but possibly looking for alternative health care might be an idea. And I'm in Oregon, I'm not sure, support groups that are available, but online is a good suggestion.
Yeah, I don't really understand what the question is,
I'm
but
not sure either, reading through that.
what I would say is online. I mean, online support groups. I don't know anything about um, you know, the support of acromegaly in Oregon. However, I do know that things like this with PNA is nationwide or worldwide, as well as the acromegaly
Right.
community. There are support groups out there. There's Facebook pages. There's all kinds of stuff where you can ask a question if you aren't satisfied with the answers or the what you're getting where you are. You should absolutely reach out and see if you can get some other answers.
Yes, I agree. If you're not satisfied with the medical care that you're getting, search for alternative medical care.
For sure.
Okay. Let's see. At what level is your IGF-1 with medication?
Uh, I'm in the range. Like I mean, it could fluctuate from day to day. But I'm well in the range now on the medication that I'm on.
Okay. Okay, here's another one. My experience is that I've had over 20 years of headaches every day. Along with the pain comes fatigue. I, however, do not have physical signs, but I do have acromegaly. In the past 3 months, I started on Smotulene Depot, and it has been life-changing. My podiatrist couldn't believe I had it because it was not affecting my feet, but I do have it. Just want
Right.
people to know that it is possible. I know that I'm very fortunate to have all the symptoms that can come with it. Just want people to know that this is also possible. So I think it's also, she's trying to say that it's also possible to not have the uh, classic symptoms, I guess you would say, of acromegaly, and that there are people that don't have those symptoms but still have acromegaly.
Yeah, it was kind of explained to me early on when I really started getting into understanding. Because, like I said, prior to 2010, I mean, I had heard of a pituitary gland. I didn't really know what it did, and I didn't really know what an endocrinologist was. Um, So the way it was explained to me was that acromegaly kind of acts in different stages, and that early on it's kind of working inside, and you don't see the changes that are going on, and that's obviously what this person is experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
I think the physical changes come later; they come over time. So I would say that you're very lucky that you didn't experience the physical changes, and that you caught it, before that started happening. And now that you are on medical therapy, you should be great. Just once again, stay up on it with the endocrinologist and manage it to the best of your ability, and just be honest with your doctor. If you start seeing a small change, make sure you talk to the doctor and let them know.
That's a good point. I think that maybe it was caught early enough before
Yeah,
those.
I would have caught it early. I wish that, I mean, I can tell you now that that day that I sat down at the computer, and I guess it would have probably been 2009, because my mom's phone call to me was in May of 10, and I was diagnosed in May. My mom's call was in April, and I had surgery in June. I wish in '09, when I went on acromegalyinfo.com and found the information and saw the symptoms, I do wish at that point I would have done something. Maybe I could have gotten started a little earlier in the line of where it was, but I didn't. So the first second you see that something's wrong, I can totally understand somebody being, a little bit afraid and taken aback when you see the term brain surgery. But I can tell you from somebody who's been through it that my experience was it really wasn't that bad. I'm glad I did it. And now, as I look back now, it was 5 years ago, I wouldn't change anything except being diagnosed earlier. That's it.
Right, yeah, that's something that we try to advocate for, is to get an earlier diagnosis so that some of these symptoms don't manifest themselves. I'll have a question for Lisa. How do you deal with, or how did you deal with Froggy's onset of anger? I'm not hearing Lisa or Froggy. Oh, there you
Yeah.
are, coming back. Okay, we didn't hear
Oh,
any of that answer, if you did answer
oh,
it.
oh, it could reestablish. Oh, no, here, go ahead
So I
again, Lisa.
me
Yeah, Lisa.
re-answer?
Yeah, go ahead, Lisa.
Yes.
Basically, it's for support. They need a lot of patience and a lot of support around them. And again, if it could be possibly something hormonal, and I think women can relate to this, you'll know the changes. If it's switching off really quick and switching out, one mood 1 minute, one mood the next, it's probably a good chance they might want to seek some medical attention and just see if there's something else that's physically wrong with them. But just support and patience, and if you're willing to work this out and wait, it probably be worth it in the end.
Great. This is more of a comment than a question. I applaud Froggy for trying to help educate others because the doctors need more education. I was diagnosed in 2010 by chance, and I had every symptom. We are an orphan disease, and what you are doing is important.
Thank you, and I would agree with that 100%. I do think that the more we can get the word out there, the more people will know what it is. I do think there are probably other people that are living with a disease that are wondering the same thing I was wondering. What the heck's wrong? And why do I feel this way? And why do I look this way?
Right,
Um,
and
so that's why I wanted to do this.
great. Well, we definitely appreciate it. This other question, I'm not sure if you would be able to answer. I'm not sure that we know this either. What is the earliest age that people have been diagnosed with acromegaly? I think that's kind of a difficult question in that when they're children, I think it's acromegaly, but it's also referred to in children, I think, as gigantism. So I'm not sure if
Yep, that's
you.
exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, if it's before puberty when your bone plates lock, it's giantism, and if it's after puberty when your bone plates have locked, it's acromegaly. So you'd be diagnosed at any age, I guess.
Yeah, I would think that that would also depend, vary person to person even.
Yeah.
Um, so that one's kind of a tough one to answer. Are there any other suggestions that you would have? I think that's it for questions. But any other suggestions you have for patients for, finding family support, or just any other general information you could share?
No, I mean the number one thing I would say is that for me when I was trying to be diagnosed, I went to acromegalyinfo.com, and it's such kind of it's kind of like an easy one-stop shop where you can go down and there's a list of symptoms. And if you start reading down and you have two symptoms, maybe you don't have it. But if you start reading down and there's 10 symptoms and you have 9 of them, I mean, it's definitely something that you should research. And you're your own best advocate. Nobody knows your body like you do. And the internet, it really truly is an amazing thing. You can do research and read and find out and see these support groups, whether it's P&A, whether it's acromegaly community, whether it's a Facebook page, whatever it is, and read that there's other people that are feeling the same way that you're feeling. And it really is, doing research is the best thing you can do, so that when you go to the doctor, you're at least able to speak educated about what you think you have. I mean, everybody goes to WebMD when they get a sore throat, and you can get a sore throat on WebMD, and they'll tell you that you're dying or you're pregnant. Crazy. But acromegalyinfo.com for me was the Bible of acromegaly because it was so easy for me to understand and read, explained what it was, showed pictures of symptoms, and went down what it could be, what it might not be. that when I went to the doctor, I was at least informed about what I thought I had and gave me kind of like the beginning of the road of where I had to go down. I knew what to expect. And just ask for help online. I mean, all of these, I'm also active in these communities and whatnot. And I mean, if you've got a question and you're not exactly sure what's going on, and you've been to a doctor and you're not getting the answer you want, there's a lot of doctors out there. You don't have to just take one answer. You can get a second opinion. Or two, you can ask people that are maybe possibly feeling the same way you're feeling. And rely on your family and friends. Don't be ashamed. I was, trust me, it's easy for me to say now. I hated the way I looked. I still don't love the way I look. I still see the features. I know some people say they don't see it. I still see it. And you're always your own worst critic. Understand that. But doing research and just being honest about how you feel and getting help is the most important thing.
Very good. Thank you. We really appreciate all you've both done today. It's been very informative. I have another note for you. Take my hat off to you, Lisa, for standing beside Froggy. I was diagnosed in 2008. I am in Vancouver, BC, and started a support group 3 years ago. We get together 2 times a year. My question to you, Lisa, who do you go to for support for you?
That would also be friends and family and his coworkers. And I do actually, with all that surrounds us and all, when he speaks, people are so kind and so understanding for when we do, we'll go to conferences and things. But again, it's mostly friends and family. I mean, just reach out. You'll be surprised who will support you. You'll be very surprised who will come out of the woodwork. I reach out to a lot of people, actually, because at least a few will listen.
That's great.
You have to get support. For being a caregiver, you need support too.
Absolutely agree with that.
And that person's extremely right. And I'll say this too. I don't know that I would have stuck around. Lisa is amazing for both before, after, and even now. Never gave up, never wanted to. I mean, I think it's safe in saying there was a time she did want to give up prior to me being diagnosed because I was so difficult to get along with. But she didn't. And then when we were diagnosed, she was so just both feet ready to go, just anything to do to help. She was there every step of the way. Every doctor's appointment, every surgery, after surgery, everything we did, she was standing there with me. And even now, she's still extremely involved and make sure that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So having somebody to lean on does make it a whole lot easier.
Very good. Yes, you both are very amazing to share your story with us. I have another note for you. Thank you, Froggy. We here at Acromegaly Community appreciate your spreading awareness and all you do. And we at PNA feel the same way. Thank you for helping us to get awareness out there and for sharing your story. I think that does it for today. Thank you again for agreeing to do this. This concludes our webinar presentation. We wish to thank you for participating, for joining us today. There'll be a brief survey after the webinar. Please fill that out. It helps us to provide you with what you need from us. And this webinar will be available on our website in video form after I get it edited and posted to our website. So thank you for joining us. Everybody have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.